खिलाफत ज़िल ख़त्मुल मुरसली है, खिलाफत ज़िल ख़त्मुल मुरसली है, खिलाफत हर्ज़ जाने मोमिनी है, खिलाफत हर्ज़ जाने
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We, Manchester South Jamaat, has an honor today to organize an informative workshop of Waqf Jadid scheme. As all Jamaat members know that Waqf Jadid is one of the blessing scheme of Jamaat, and it starts every year in January and then in December. Today, inshallah, we will provide you a brief information about this blessing scheme. So now we start our program with the tilawat, and I'll request to Hafiz Shamsu Zoha Sahib, please do tilawat for us.
अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। तिलावत कुरान करीम। अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا من طيبات ما كسبتم ومما أخرجنا لكم من الأرض ولا تيمموا الخبيث منه تنفقون ولستم بآخذيه إلا أن تغمضوا فيه والله غني حميد. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا والله واسع عليم. الذين ينفقون أموالهم بالليل والنار سرا وعلانية فلهم
فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون اللهم صل
Jazakallah, Wasim Jaza, Hafiz Shamsul Zuhal Sahab. Can I request now to Khurram Nasir Rana Sahab, please do translation for us.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। अभी आपके सामने सूरह अल बकरा की आयत 268, 269 और 275 तिलावत की गई। इन आयत का तर्जुमा बयान फरमुदा हज़रत खलीफतुल मसीह रबी रहमतुल्लाह ताला आपके पीछे खिदमत है। ऐ वो लोगो जो ईमान लाए हो, जो कुछ तुम कमाते हो उसमें से और उसमें से भी जो हमने तुम्हारे लिए ज़मीन में से निकाला है, पाकीज़ा चीज़ें खर्च करो और अल्लाह की राह में खर्च करते वक्त इसमें से ऐसी नापाक चीज़ का कसद ना किया करो कि तुम उसे हरगिज़ कबूल करने वाले ना हो, सिवाय इसके कि तुम इससे सरफ नज़र करो और जान लो कि अल्लाह के न्याज बहुत काबिल तारीफ़ है। शैतान तुम्हें गुर्बत से डराता है और तुम्हें फहशा का हुक्म देता है, जबकि अल्लाह तुम्हारे साथ अपनी जनाब से बख्शिश और फजल का वादा करता है और अल्लाह वसअतें अता करने वाला, दायमी इल्म रखने वाला है। वो लोग जो अपने अम्वाल खर्च करते हैं रात को भी और दिन को भी, छुप कर भी और खुले आम भी, तो उनके लिए इनका अज्र उनके रब के पास है और इन पर कोई खौफ नहीं होगा और ना वो गम करेंगे। English translation of Surah Al-Baqarah verses 268, 269 and 275. O ye who believe, spend of good things that you have earned, and of what we produce for you from the earth, and seek not what is bad to spend out of it, when you would not take it yourselves, except that you conneve at it, and know that Allah is self-sufficient, praiseworthy. Satan threatens you with poverty and enjoin on you what is foul, whereas Allah promises you forgiveness from himself and bounty, and Allah is bountiful, all-knowing. Those who spend their wealth by night and day, secretly and openly, but their reward with their Lord on them shall come no fear, nor shall they grieve. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, Khurram Sahab, for your translation in Urdu and English. As you know, I have been told you that WAQFE Jadid blessing scheme is every year started in the month of January and the end of December. Every year, members of Jamaat from all around the world take part in it and fulfill their promises for seeking blessing of Allah Ta'ala. Despite of its spiritual benefit, this blessing scheme is also source to provide worldly benefit to the other peoples worldwide. Today, the main aim to organize this workshop to give brief information and awareness of this scheme to you. Our speaker guest, Faheem Sahab, National Secretary, WAQFE Jadid, and Nayab Sahab, General Secretary of UK chapter, and also General Secretary of European region of International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineering will be with us. And from the center, they will, inshallah, cover information which is not only the how this scheme is blessed to all of us, but also how it's a good source to getting benefit for other peoples living all around the world. There will be also a question answer session end of this program, and member can send their question to the on WhatsApp number, which is showing on your screen, and our guest member they can um, give answer of your question answer session. So I humbly request to Faheem Saab, who is serving at the moment as a National Secretary, WAQFE Jadid, and also we know that he has been served as Sadr Khudamul Anbiya UK for many years, mashallah, very hardworking person. So can I request to Faheem Saab, please, can you give us the information of WAQFE Jadid scheme, and we know we will know that how this scheme is helpful for other peoples all around the world. So Faheem Saab, over to you.
Jazakumullah, Mohsin Saab, thank you so much for the introduction. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to all the viewers. Thank you so much for Manchester South Jamaat for hosting this particular session, giving me the opportunity to talk about Waqf Jadid. And what I would like to start with, and just to remind members, as Mohsin Saab has mentioned already, the Waqf Jadid scheme has been ongoing for many years. The year end is the end of this month, the 31st of December. And typically, in regards to this scheme, Huzur will refer to financial sacrifice, Mali Qurbani. We hear this term very, very often. And so this next slide will show a very brief comment from Huzur as to what a real financial sacrifice is.
बाज़ की कुर्बानियां देखकर हैरत होती है। अगर किसी के पास माल की फरावानी हो, बेशुमार माल हो, दौलत हो, और उसमें से कुछ दे दिया जाए, तो ये कोई गैर मामूली बात नहीं है। लेकिन तंगी के हालात में हो, गुर्बत की हालत हो, और फिर खुदा ताला की मोहब्बत को हासिल करने के लिए, खुदा ताला के दीन के लिए माली कुर्बानी की जाए, तो ये असल कुर्बानी है, जो अल्लाह ताला का कुर्ब दिलाने का जरिया भी बनती है।
Jazakallah. So Huzur made this comment in the Waqf Jadid sermon of this year, in January 2013, early this year, in 3rd of January. We hear this term very often, and in this particular sermon, and in the sermons before this, Huzur announces the top countries in terms of their contribution towards Waqf Jadid. This is very similar to Tariq Jadid as well. Huzur lists, and this is in the spirit, as we are told in the Quran as well, to vie with one another in good deeds, to compete with one another in good deeds. This is why Huzur typically in Tariq Jadid and also in Waqf Jadid will list the top countries in terms of their contribution. So my question to you as the audience is, which position does the UK Jamaat currently hold amongst all the contributing countries? We have 4 options here: first, second, third, or fourth. So what do you think? We've been hearing this khutbah and the khutbah of Huzur Aqdas for a number of years now. Every year he lists these countries. For this year, what do you think UK's position is? The next slide will show you the answer. And the answer is that we are first, alhamdulillah. And this is very important for you as members of the Jamaat to understand and appreciate, because your donations, aapke mali qurbani se humne ye pehla number liya. We are first because of your donations and the donations of the members of the UK Jamaat. And furthermore, we should be first because we are the host of Khilafat. We are very fortunate that we are within the residence in the same country where Huzur is in residence. However, as we go to the next slide, there is room for improvement. Even though we are first, we shouldn't feel that we should sit back and relax. Ke hum pehle number pe aage, we beat Pakistan, we beat Germany, alhamdulillah, we can relax. No, that's not the case. Because there are many earning adults, and this is a key point I'd want to highlight. There are many earning adults, Khaddam and above, from those who have jobs, essentially those who have an income. They are contributing between 10 and 50 pounds per year for the scheme. In some cases, it's less than children. And so I think that if it is clearly understood who benefits from this chanda, then the amount would be much more. Meaning कि हम हर साल सुनते हैं, लेकिन कई लोग होंगे जिसको वक्फ मस्जिद का नाम सुना है, लेकिन उनको पूरा मालूम नहीं है कि पैसे कहाँ खर्च हो रहे हैं, कहाँ इस्तेमाल हो रहा है, किनको फायदा हो रहा है. So this is very important, and I hope the next during this presentation you'll understand a bit more as to why the scheme was set up and who it benefits. We'll go to the next slide now, in which I just want to highlight, mainly for the younger viewers, that this scheme, this blessed scheme, was set up by Hazrat Muslim Maud, the second Khalifa. Huzur's Khilafat was for over half a century. During his term as Khalifa, during his tenure, Huzur established a number of tahriqs. He established the auxiliaries, as we're aware, the Qudam Ahmadiyya, Lajnai Mala, and Sawallah, Tawal Ahmadiyya. All the structures that Hazrat Masih Maud has put into place. Hazrat Muslim Maud essentially made their foundations strong and put the rules and regulations in place so that the Jamaat continued and flourished. So there's just more for your information. As we move to the next slide, I want to ask a few questions to you again. The question now is, when was Waqf Jadid established? And you have a few options: 1934, 1947, 1957, 1965. These are very important dates in Jamaat history, important years rather. So I'll give you a few moments to think of the answer, and we'll go to the next slide, which will give the answer. And the answer is 1957, December the 27th, in fact. Huzur announced this scheme. Incidentally, the other dates for your information: 1934 was when Tehreek-e-Jadid was set up, November the 23rd. Sometimes the question is raised as to why is the year end of Tehreek-e-Jadid and Waqf-e-Jadid so close together? Well, it's because it's when the schemes were established. So at the end of the calendar year, the December 27th was Waqf-e-Jadid. Now that's been rounded up to 31st of December as the year end for Waqf-e-Jadid. For Tehreek-e-Jadid, it has been rounded to the November the 1st as the beginning of the year for Tehreek-e-Jadid. So this is why the dates are close and they can't be moved. There's nothing we can do about it. 1947 was the partition of India-Pakistan. This is important to this scheme, and I'll explain in a moment. And 1965 was when Hazrat Masih II passed away. This was, Waqf-e-Jadid was the last of these schemes that Huzur set up. If you go to the next slide, there's a key point I'd want to share with you as well, as to the purpose of Waqf-e-Jadid. The main purpose, when it was originally set up by Hazrat Muslim Maud, was for the Talim and Tarbiyat of Ahmadis living in the remote villages of Pakistan. Now, if you remember, this scheme was set up in 1957. This newly formed country, Pakistan, was only 10 years old by that time, really newly established. Huzur did a survey, and he asked Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, the fourth Khalifa, who subsequently became fourth Khalifa, but Huzur tasked him at the time with this job, just to do a survey and an analysis of Pakistan. And he found that there was a moral decline generally in the Muslims. This was because there was a lot of Hindu influence still in the country. All their customs and cultures was affecting the Musliman, the people generally in Pakistan. At the same time, in around the mid 1950s, there was another movement to remove Ahmadiyyat completely, similar to just before when Tehreek-e-Jadid started. There was a movement to remove Ahmadiyyat. Again, it restarted now in Pakistan. And so Hazrat Muslim Maud did what we do best, and which we are continuously taught to from Islam Ahmadiyyat, which is to reach out with love. And essentially, he asked for teachers, muallimeen, to go to these remote parts of Pakistan. So away from the cities, in the remote areas, the desert-like areas where there were Ahmadis living there, but there was no one to teach them. For these teachers to go there and give them moral guidance, give them the talim of how to read the Quran and so on. Similarly, at the same time, tabligh was done to the Hindus living in those areas as well, to preach to them and bring them towards Islam Ahmadiyyat. And in all of this, the Jamaat served all these peoples in these remote areas. The next clip will show a very brief video from Huzur Aqdas explaining this as well. On the next slide.
सिंध में हिंदुओं के इलाके में तबलीग का काम हुआ, बहुत मुश्किल काम था ये भी। ये हिंदू जो थे वहाँ के रहने वाले थरों में, वहाँ के बारिशें न होने की वजह से मजदूरी के लिए सिंध में आया करते थे आबाद इलाके में। तो यहाँ आकर मुसलमान ज़िम्मेदारों की बदसलूकी की वजह से इस्लाम के नाम से भी घबराते थे। वो गुर्बत भी इनकी उरूज पर थी, बड़ी बड़ी ज़मीनें थीं लेकिन पानी नहीं था, इसलिए कुछ कर नहीं सकते थे, आमद नहीं थी। और इसी गुर्बत की वजह से मुसलमान ज़िम्मेदार जो इनके पास ये काम करते थे उनको तंग भी किया करते थे, बेगार भी उनसे लेते थे, या इतनी मामूली रकम देते थे कि वो बेगार के बराबर ही है। और इसी तरह जब ये देखा ईसाई मिशनों ने कि उनके साथ ये सलूक हो रहा है, तो इनकी गुर्बत का फ़ायदा उठाकर ईसाइयों ने भी इमदाद इनको देनी शुरू की है, उसके साथ तबलीग करके लालच देकर ईसाइयत की तरफ माइल करना शुरू किया इन हिंदुओं को। तो ये बहुत बड़ा काम था जो वक्फ़े जदीद ने किया उस ज़माने में, और अब तक कर रही है। तो बहरहाल अल्लाह ताला ने मदद फरमाई और बड़े सालों की कोशिशों के बाद उस इलाके में अहमदियत का नफूज़ होना शुरू हुआ।
Jazakallah. As we go to the next slide, this slide will show to the viewers the scope of Waqf Jadid now. So as I mentioned earlier, Waqf Jadid was set up just for Pakistan in the early days, in the beginning, and exclusively contributed towards by the members of Pakistan Jamaat. After this, the scheme was expanded, and now currently the scheme is in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and as well as East and West Africa. As we go to the next slide, Huzur will explain this more.
पहले सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में होती थी और खिलाफत राबिया के पाकिस्तान से बाहर की जमातों में ये तय की गई, उसके मुसी राबिया ने की, ताकि अफ्रीका और भारत में जमात के कामों को मज़ीद वसअत दी जाए। जैसा कि मैंने बताया, गुज़श्ता एक साल में अफ्रीका और भारत में मसाजिद और मिशन हाउसेस की तामीर हुई है और कुछ ख़रीदे भी गए हैं। इसके अलावा तबलीगी सरगर्मियाँ हैं, जिसकी वजह से अल्लाह ताला के फजल से लाखों सईद लोगों को अहमदियत यानी हकीकी इस्लाम को कबूल करने की तौफीक अल्लाह ताला ने अता फरमाई। बेशक इन ममालिक में रहने वाले अहमदी भी अपनी अपनी वसात के मुताबिक गैर मामूली तौर पर माली कुर्बानियाँ कर रहे हैं, लेकिन उनकी गुर्बत की वजह से वो इतनी ज़्यादा कुर्बानी नहीं कर सकते कि तमाम अखराजात पूरे कर सकें। इसलिए अमीर मुल्कों का जो चंदा वक्फ जदीद है, ख़ास तौर पर ये अफ्रीका और भारत में खर्च किया जाता है। लेकिन जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि इन मुल्कों के लोग भी एक जज्बे के तहत चंदे देते हैं।
Jazakallah. Hazur, this was quite a profound comment that Hazur gave in that last clip. So just before we play this particular one, Hazur mentioned that the people in these countries, in Africa, particularly East and West Africa, and in India, they give extraordinary sacrifices towards the scheme of Waqf Jadid purely to be a part of it, to receive Allah's blessings. However, the amounts that they give isn't enough to fulfill all the projects. And so Hazur mentioned that the contributions from the more affluent countries, the richer countries, Europe, North America, their donations, so essentially our donations, go towards East and West Africa and parts of India. As we play this next clip, it highlights some of these schemes of Waqf Jadid. And this is very important for you to appreciate how your donations are being utilized and spent. This here is a clip of the Muallamin College in Rabwa, very similar to Jamia. The members who dedicate their lives to Waqf Jadid are trained here, and then they're sent to the various countries. This particular, there's no audio, so as I'm talking through it and explaining the clips. This is a clip of a hospital, a high standard of hospital are built through the donations so that these poor people can receive treatment for free, if not virtually for free. These hospitals are away from the cities and closer to these village areas. Mobile health clinics are set up. So volunteer doctors would go out to these remote villages. These villages have no infrastructure. There's no roads. There's no waterways. There's no cabling. So these people typically would not have seen a professional doctor. And our volunteer doctors would go out and treat these people. You see here clips of women and children. They are classed as second-class citizens in these developing areas of where Waqf Jadid operates. And so again, they have been given the opportunity to receive good treatment, medical treatment. Because of the poor area, the facilities are poor, the water there is undrinkable. From the drinking water that they have, diseases develop, things like eye diseases will develop. And so simple procedures of eye cataract removals and such like, those are treated through the doctors that are sent. School and education is very important through Waqf Jadid. This is a clip of a school. And typically in these villages, by the age of 10 or 12, their education has finished and the children have to work on the farm or whatever the household job is. But through Waqf Jadid, a good level of education is given. This is a clip of a computer institute. Handicraft skills are taught to the local villages so that they can utilize this and maybe sell some of the things that they produce. As I mentioned earlier, the water in this area is extremely bad. They don't have access to clean water. Often they have to walk miles just to get a bucket full of what is really undrinkable water. But through this scheme, water wells have been dug or wells have been refurbished. Water storage units, this is a clip here, have been set up to give them access to clean water. Where we have 3 or 4 taps in our house, there's 1 tap in the whole village, but it's something that they greatly appreciate and need. Solar power energy is also set up through this scheme, giving the villagers who have never even seen a light switch or light bulb, give them access to electricity, to lighting, and more importantly, to access to Islam, Ahmadiyyat, and Khilafat. A lot of these people, the Ahmadis living in some of these villages, have never seen a picture of Huzur Aqdas. And so now through the MTA links that these solar power energy can provide them with, they have access to the Jamaat as well. So these last two utilities have been set up through IAAE, the International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers. This particular scheme has been in operation for a number of years. In the more recent past, in about last 10 years or so, Huzur Aqdas has guided them towards humanitarian projects. The funding for IAAE, and this is the one thing I wanted to share with you on this part, the funding for IAAE, the vast majority comes from Waqf Jadid. And so now I'll hand over to Nayab Sayed Saab, who is the General Secretary for IAAE. He will further explain to you the blessings of Waqf Jadid and how your donations have made a real impact. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullah Faheem Sahib, and also Jazakumullah Sadr Sahib, Mohsin Sahib, and to the local Jamaat for giving us this opportunity to share some stuff with you today. If you give me a second, I'll just share my presentation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As Faheem Sahib mentioned, today I'm representing IAAE, International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers, and particularly today, what we'd like to discuss is the blessings of Waqf Jadid and how through the enablement of the sacrifices made by you all through the Waqf Jadid scheme, how the impact is felt way further than you can ever imagine. So to kick off today, some of the stuff that I'd like to discuss in my little talk is a basic introduction to IAAE, explain once again how projects are actually enabled through your sacrifices in Waqf Jadid, how this money translates into the positive impact that is felt by many of the beneficiaries that we serve, and then finally I'd like to touch a little bit on the element of sacrifice. So about IAAE. So IAAE stands for International Association of Ahmadi Architects and Engineers, and it's basically a collaboration of all the engineers and architects and technical skills within the Jamaat across the globe. Founded originally in 1980 by Hazrat Khalifat al-Masih Salis Rahmatullah alayh. The initial, what do you call it, objective for setting this up was twofold. Number one was to correlate the scientific discoveries and the new elements of research in trying to verify the teachings of the Holy Quran and correlate with those. And secondly, as the Jamaat started to grow and go through its phase of growth where demands are placed on infrastructure, etc., this was used to leverage the technical skill sets that were available in the Jamaat in order to benefit the Jamaat's growth. Hazrat Khalifat al-Masih Rabi Rahmatullah alayh, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, before the period of his Khilafat, was actually the first patron appointed to IAAE. And throughout the length of his period of Khilafat, he spent many a trip and much time out in Africa trying to get to the deep-rooted causes and understanding that why do those challenges exist, what kinds of challenges exist, and how we as a Jamaat could assist in trying to alleviate some of these issues. Once Hazrat Khalifat al-Masih al-Khamis, Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, was appointed as the Khulafa, in 2003, he got IAAE together, and because he had actually spent a vast amount of his work out in Africa, so he had first-hand actually experienced many of the challenges, etc., and he understood the depth and the pain of what the African people were going through. So he refocused the association towards actually providing humanitarian work. And this was basically split into 4 different committees. 4 different committees were appointed. The primary one being Water for Life, which was responsible for trying to provide clean, potable water to remote parts of Africa. The Alternative Energy Committee, otherwise also known as AEC, was tasked with trying to investigate the use of renewable energy through solar and wind, etc., to provide low-cost energy to remote parts of Africa. Then we have the Architects Division, and their work underpinned much of the work that the association does, from simple things in terms of design of community centers, hospitals, schools, and our model villages. And then finally, we have a new one, model village, which is basically a conglomeration of all these previous disciplines, so your light, water, and energy, and combine them together to help create sustainable villages for the masses. Now, the main reasons for the association in terms of what it's trying to do is provide positive impact for improvement of lives for the many. Clean water, as we've mentioned, electricity and light. Economic, we also try to not only provide the basic infrastructure, but then try and help individuals within these countries to try and get up on their own 2 feet. And this is done through an elements of like some of Faheem Sahib has already covered, initiatives such as setting up small scale artisan production, or trying to do some knowledge sharing and upping the skills base of these individuals, trying to get them into a situation where they can actually go out and become employable. Finally, the biggest thing, which Faheem Sahib has also touched on, is through the provision of MTA using solar, we're able to get the messages of Hazur Aqdas and Islam and Ahmadiyyat out to the most rural parts of Africa. In terms of the projects, Water for Life is obviously underpins the main core area of and focus of our work. And to date, we have, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, got it up to about 2,700 water points across Africa. And that includes both hand pumps and solar pumps and a mixture of rainwater harvesting situations in locations where you are unable to take drilling rigs or get access to water. AEC, we're providing the microgrid solar light and electric and MTA through the use of solar panels. So the association and its engineers have developed a small unit which contains the relevant infrastructure to provide this, and that is scaled out to about 700 locations and villages across Africa, alhamdulillah, to date. Architects, as I mentioned, they underpin a lot of the work that we do in terms of both the design and the build of the mosques, hospitals, schools, and community centers. And then the village projects, which I'll come on to in a little while, we are currently up to about 20 villages with probably about another 3 or 4 in the works, spanning across 13 countries. Smallest village has about 100 households. And the largest village, which is in Kitonga in Tanzania, actually serves 3,000 people. So just to give you an idea of the scale. Finally, on the knowledge sharing side, what we've actually commenced about a year ago with the blessings of Hazur Aqdas bin Nasr Aziz is the MITC, which is the Masroor International Technical College. Now, this is a new learning establishment that's being set up in Burkina Faso with the view that we'll teach simple and practical skills that are applicable to the local members. So items such as motor mechanics, carpentry, artisan and craftsmanship, repairing water pumps and boreholes, learning how to do solar products and solar pumping solutions, and any other sort of specific areas that are relevant to a particular theatre in which we work. And this will then hopefully start to instill this level of transfer of knowledge and capacity building to allow these people to stand up on their own 2 feet, inshallah. Now, what I wanted to do today is the rest of my presentation is basically going to be focused on some videos and images, to try and explain to you the plight of the challenges that exist out there, B, how through the blessings of this blessed initiative of Waqf Jadid and the sacrifices, we are able to carry out projects to try and alleviate some of these situations. and then we'll touch a little bit further upon the sacrifice and the benefits and how impact. So first slide is about pineapple juice. Now you're probably looking at this image and saying, hold on a second, I've come here to be part of a presentation on Waqf Jadid. What's this got to do with pineapple juice? So as part of our water projects, on my very first trip, as we went out to do a water project, one of the very first things we do before we even look at repairing the pump is we check the quality of the water in the borehole or the well to make sure that it's fit for consumption before we carry on any additional work. This, dear brothers and sisters, was the very first water sample that I pulled up on my first trip. And not only did it look like pineapple juice, but the consistency of the liquid was also thick like pineapple juice. And this was the drinking and washing and cleaning water for a population of about 350 people. Now, when we came back after our trip, we present all our trips to Hazur and Mulakat. And when I showed this picture to Hazur simply turned around to me, smiled at me and said, I have actually been drinking orange-colored water. So there's not much that you can say at a comment like that. And it shows the depth of Hazur's understanding of the challenges that exist. Here's a small video, which was the second well that we actually went to. And I'll share this with members. If you just bear with me for a second.
Okay, we're now here at well number 2 in Shabluba, which is an open well in the middle of paddy fields. Due to the recent rains, etc., the well is actually quite highly saturated. You can see the grey murky condition of the actual water itself. I'll move a little bit closer to the actual well whilst not trying not to sink in these paddy fields. I'll show you the actual condition of the water, all sorts of insects, bugs, etc. in the water. This is the actual well itself, casing. It's overflowing and brimming, and you can actually see the quality. This grey, cloudy, murky, milky solution, which is actually the water source for over 1,000 people around this area. And there's obviously not a lot we can do with this particular well here right now, but just to show you the situation. The next closest well is in that general direction where Rabbi Sahib is standing. The other side is 1 kilometer away. But yeah, this is the active drinking, cleaning, washing water source for over 1,000 people in Shabluba district.
So that was well number 2. So there was me suddenly starting to think, hold on a second, I've come into a little bit of a bad run here. Maybe the next situation will improve. So normally, as I said, the distance between water points can be anything sort of between 3-4 kilometers going up to 12-15 kilometers. So luckily the next well was only 1 kilometer away. And this was the exact image that I took with my phone when I got to this well here. So there in the center you have the well, and right in the middle of the well itself you see this small square, which is supposed to be covered. But what happens is during the dry season, because the water levels in the well start to fall, they basically take the top up and start to use a bucket to pull out water, which further then leads to risks of infection, etc., with the water, etc. There's many other risks attached. These two gentlemen standing here. So I said to the Maulam Sahib who was accompanying us on the trip, I said, Maulam Sahib, are these people doing some building work or something close by, or they're working the farmland? And Maulam Sahib said, no, these are regular villagers. And this really opened up the eyes in terms of trying to explain the depths of the levels of poverty, which you don't really see within the main cities themselves, but when you go out into the rural outposts in the far-flung corners of the country, you truly start to understand that these people are basically been completely ignored. Moving on, we said, okay, let's move on to the next well. So the next water point was 15 kilometers away, 12 or 15 kilometers away. And upon getting there, we arrive at this beautiful, lush, paradise-like looking scene. And I said, okay, we're somewhere here. Where's the borehole or the well or the water point? And he laughed and he said, you're actually standing at it. This here in the middle was the actual water source. So you move closer into it to give you an idea. It was basically a swamp. And this was the water source for 3,500 people. Now, when you get to these places, one of the first things that you also do when you check the water is you ask the locals, okay, you're using this water, are you definitely sure you're using this water? And they said, yeah, this is the only source that's available. And when you try and say to them, look, do you not have underlying sort of challenges when you drink this water? Do you not get ill, etc.? Stomach bugs, aches? He goes, yeah, stomach pains and diarrhea and stuff, but that's normal, isn't it? And that really sort of, I did not know what to say, because here it is, we go to a tap, you put a glass underneath it, and you get crystal clear water, which you drink. These people have established a new norm for themselves where they think that diarrhea and infections and stuff like that from using water is a normal part of life. Moving on anyway, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, when we actually do the waterworks in terms of rehabilitations of the wells, which is stripping off the old pump and then replacing it with a new pump, cleaning out the old borehole, when many of these situations, the pumps have been out of action for anything between 2, 3, 5, 7 years. And invariably, they're a mechanical item. They're going to fail at some stage. And the actual work required is so little. When you pull up these pumps, in many cases, all it is a simple washer in the water cylinder at the bottom of the borehole that needs replacing. But due to the lack of resource, due to the lack of skill sets and money to go with it, these people are unable to do it, so they just go back to walking their 6, 7, 8 kilometers a day to get the water. And even that work, most of it has been, made. The women of the house and the young girls are made responsible. So as a result, they lose a big chunk of their lives because they're spending anything between 3 to 6 to 8 hours a day just going out, taking a 20-liter jerry can, loading it up with water, and carrying that 20 kilos back those 2 hours in order to provide substandard water for their families. So once we've done a rehabilitation, we normally ask the village elders or the village chief to come and do the first few strokes. And brothers and sisters, once that water starts to trickle through the pump and then turns into a stream, the looks, the sentiments, and the feelings and emotions on not only the people of the faces who we're trying to serve, but those actually going out carrying to do the work, you cannot describe those sentiments. They're very, very moving. So here's a small video to show the work that Water for Life does and the number of people that it serves.
The Water for Life team has been tasked with providing clean, portable water to the most vulnerable. The works have impacted over 2.7 million people around the world. The team has rehabilitated over 2,500 hand pumps in Africa. With NGOs and governments not always providing the resources to repair and maintain hand pumps, there are thousands of redundant pumps and boreholes in Africa that are no longer being used. The rehabilitation method is more economical than digging and installing new boreholes and pumps. For larger villages and smaller towns, a solar water system is more suitable. Harnessing the power of the sun, solar panels provide power to electrical pumps installed in deep boreholes. The pumps feed the water to tanks, where the water is stored and distributed through a network of pipes and taps. To date, the team has installed 7 solar water systems. The team has also undertaken the installation of new hand pumps, with over 34 currently installed. The team also has its own drilling rig, which is currently operating in West Africa.
So that gives you a little bit of scale on the waterworks. The numbers were slightly out because this was done for one particular village, but the numbers are much larger, as I mentioned earlier. So moving on swiftly, the AEC, the Alternative Energy Committee, this is the small unit in the middle picture here that you see, which is the unit that was designed and implemented by IEEE, and it provides in conjunction with the solar panels you see on the left to provide lighting, MTA, and some small charging points out in the rural villages. Now, just in terms of some of the benefits, we remember going to a village where the local Muallim was actually trying to explain that what happens in the evening, as soon as it goes dark at 6, there's no light, whatever, the kids go off to do their own devices, and there's not a lot that happens. So we went the same journey on the way back, and that was a week later. And they said through the provision of this light, they had had 6 evenings where all the children were coming in and they were doing Quran classes and Tarbiyat classes almost every night. So just these few things can make an amazing difference. And above all, many of these people who have deep-rooted steadfastness in terms of their faith, and yet many of them not even seen even a picture or heard of or heard the voice of Khilafat. And through the provision of solar energy, we're able to bring this out to the masses. Model village, once again, this is a culmination of putting all these faculties together and providing sustainable villages. So a typical model village will include a community center, an element of social enterprise, MTA satellite system, solar water system, toilets and sanitation, which is a very, very important item. Lighting, and in certain cases will help to build small roads, allowing to link the villages from their rural locations to a main road to help ease the infrastructure. Impact so far, as I explained, we have about 20 villages now in 13 countries, with the smallest one having a simple, what do you call it, 100 households, going up to the top one in Tanzania and Kidonga, where we serve 3,000 households. A couple of images here just to explain the items in the model village. So there we have the solar panels with the solar water tower on the left-hand side, which is then pumped out to water that they don't have to be pumping hand pumps all day long. The aim is we build some pipes and a network of pipes throughout the village, which is connected to the gravity-fed water system. So they literally, the aim is to try and make sure that people are no further than about 3 to 5 minutes away from their closest water source. And then on the right here, this is our village in Benin, where we've set up a small class where a local seamstress comes in and teaches the village members how to sew clothes, and some of them have actually started to gain some income as a result out of it. Sustainability and maintenance, a very important part. So when we go out to do our projects, we always try our best to ensure we gather as many of the locals, and they can be Jamaat members and non-Jamaat members, irrespective of creed or color or race. We try to involve as many people as we can with the view to providing them some basic know-how in trying to maintain the equipment moving forward, and also trying to increase their chances of employability within their local markets. One of the aspects that we don't really ever get a chance to look at when we talk about Waqf Jadid and its blessings is not only are we able through initiatives such as IAAA to provide the basic worldly requirements and the life requirements of infrastructure and facilities, but this also has an indirect link with how we are able to bring people closer to Allah. So I'll play this short video from our Murabi Sahib in the village of Soyo in Benin, and I'll let him explain the rest.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. My name is Ton Sheffield. I'm the Murabi of this place. This is my zone. The area is Soyo Kotohwe. The Jamaat, especially we are in Kotohwe here. Before, people think God is unjust. So some of the village people think that when they watch films, they think, why have God done all this for these people? And he has forgotten us. What is our offense? When we were born, did we ask him to give us birth in Africa or in here? But when this is done, people think that the nature has not been unjust to anyone, because they never imagine, even for a day. They cannot imagine because they have not seen it before, and it just come to place. So it has changed their opinion about God. That led them to know that God did not forget anybody, and that pain is relieved from them. When they watch people ahead, they watch videos, they think, God, why? But today they see that what they see around, they have seen in their home. They have water, and they have lights, they have laptops, and they watch things, they watch MT. they're happy with God.
This last video nicely brings us on to the element of sacrifice. Even though I've seen that video so many times, but it's still very moving that when you make that connection, that through your blessed sacrifices in this blessed scheme, how far that element of sacrifice goes. Sacrifice, dear brothers and sisters, youngsters and elders, is universal. What do I mean by that? From the time that you make the sacrifice into this scheme, Allah blesses this so many-fold, not just in terms of its monetary values, but if we look at the physical aspects of sacrifice, so you make a sacrifice by going short on something within your lives to feed into this initiative. This allows IAAA to carry out projects, which in turn allows its engineers to actually sacrifice their time, their effort, their knowledge, and in most of our cases, even paying their own airfares by going out to Africa to try and serve these people. We then provide this infrastructure and everything to the people and trying to resolve their poverty alleviation and provide them the human rights to water and energy. They then in turn also sacrifice manyfold. When we've done a lot of these projects, these people don't have much themselves. They will try and come up and they'll try and give you a chicken, they'll try and give you some eggs, they'll give you a lamb, they'll try and give you some of their livestock, which is their most valued possessions. So this entire element of sacrifice compounds and multiplies right the way down the chain. I will share a very small anecdote here in the interest of time. In one of our countries, in DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, infrastructure is so poor, the whole country is basically strewn with canals and rivers, and that is basically your road network. So one of our teams going out on our AEC project to deliver solar power and MTA to a village, traveled loads, and they got to this big crossing, which they had to do before they got to the village where they were intending to do the work. It was late at night, so they decided to just stop there for the night. And as they were there, people found out and they inquired who they were, etc. And then when they mentioned that they were, as part of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat to come and do this work, they said, yeah, we think we've got somebody here. So they went out and rushed and got an individual who was the local Sadr. So he came out and welcomed and, with the best of their world, tried to the best to serve them in terms of hospitality and everything. And explained that they were a village that was so remote from the capital, Kinshasa, that a big chunk of the village had accepted Ahmadiyya about 3 years prior. But due to the remote nature of where they were located, they really lost contact and not had contact from the local country mission house. So our team explained that, look, we're going to do this project. We'll be back in a day or so. So prepare a letter if you like, and we'll take it back to local Amir Sahib. That work took 2 or 3 days, got delayed for technical reasons. They came back 2 days, the evening of the second day. When they got back to the village late at night, they did that crossing and the entire village was there waiting for them. They served them hospitality the best that they could. And then they said, okay, here's a letter for Amir Sahib. Please take this with you and ask them to contact us again. Here's a letter for Hazur, for prayers. You've told us that you've come from Hazur and you're going back to Hazur. Please take this letter of prayers to them. And then they said, hold on a second. And a guy disappears into a mud hut and comes back out with a small cloth bag, which looked like a pillowcase. And our member said, what's this? And the guy goes, this is the chanda for the entire Jamaat for the last 3 years. This, brothers and sisters, is the true meaning of sacrifice. And it's a pleasure here to share this with you, to explain to you how your sacrifice goes the entire way down the chain. In terms of when it comes to Waqf Jadid, please, as Allah Ta'ala mentions, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and they spend out of whatsoever we have provided for them. And we have seen this exemplified by the people who we're trying to serve, who are living amongst all these challenges. So please dig deep when it comes to this. With this Jadid, Waqf Jadid initiative, when they talk about win-win, they talk about a transaction, they talk about a deal in the Western world, and they normally say just win-win. It's not win-win, because in this case, you're actually creating positive impact for many lives. you're at the same time sharing in the abundance of blessings associated with this tariq, and you are also helping to participate in bringing the spirit of sacrifice to mankind. And as you saw with that video from Rabbi Sahib, bringing people closer to Islam, Ahmadiyyat, and to their creator. Jazakumullah Sana Jaza for this humble opportunity. Request of prayers for everybody to not only pray for the scheme, for yourself, the participants, and those that we aim to serve. And above all, Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen Ayyadallah bin Nasr al-Aziz. May Allah enable us all to truly recognize,
Dear
embrace,
viewers,
and share
if
in
you
the
want to
blessings of
ask any
Waqf.
questions,
Jazakumullah.
please send your questions via WhatsApp on the number shown on your screen.
Jazakumullah, Sahib. As you can all appreciate, a wonderful presentation hopefully has given all the viewers a better understanding of Waqf Jadid in terms of its impact. And you should know that when Huzur gives his khutbah on Waqf Jadid, you would never hear about these schemes and the detail of the people, the water projects, the solar power LNG, all the people being helped. Huzur doesn't go into that much detail. Huzur in turn highlights the sacrifices of members, and we as a Jamaat is our character that we don't show off in terms of all the good work that the Jamaat does. We don't do it to get a pat on the back to say and for people to be amazed by our achievements. We do this purely to win Allah's love and mercy. It's to serve humanity is essentially why we as a Jamaat do all these things without wanting to get any recognition. But I just want to put a few things into perspective. Pakistan Jamaat, the children of Pakistan Jamaat, they contribute rather a large amount towards Waqf Jadid. The children are encouraged to give from their pocket monies, their EDs, and give this towards the scheme of Waqf Jadid. And in one khutbah a few years back, Huzur mentioned that half of the amount raised, or almost half of the amount raised by Pakistan Jamaat, half of that came from the children. The under 15-year-olds, boys and girls, they contributed and they raised a huge amount. Now, if you put this into perspective, that the people that Waqf Jadid is benefiting in Pakistan, the schools, the hospitals, the mobile camps, the water wells, a lot of these people are not Ahmadi Muslim. A lot of these people see Ahmadi Muslims as not even citizens of Pakistan, and they as you know this, they look down upon. However, our children are helping to better their lives. So this is important for you to understand what it is that Jamaat Ahmadiyya is doing through all these schemes. This was just an example of Waqf Jadid. And I also want to highlight to you the importance of financial sacrifice. Nayab Sahib very eloquently explained this and the benefits of financial sacrifice. We are told this many, many times, and I'm certain that there are viewers here who have been the recipient, who have received the blessings of financial sacrifice. You've given because you've been asked to, you've heard the Khalifa, and you've given towards the different tehreeks of the Jamaat, and you gave an amount that you felt the loss of. But you did this purely to win Allah's mercy and pleasure and his love, and then you received his blessings, and those blessings were in various different ways. And I'm convinced you've had this experience. I just want to share one particular example, and then I'll hand back to Mohsin Sahib. There was a khadim a few years back. He typically gave £100 or so towards Waqf Jadid normally every year. This particular year, he gave £1,000. And that amount, he felt it. He felt that loss. £1,000 for a lot of people is a huge amount of money, a considerable amount. But he gave this to earn Allah's mercy and blessings because he needed it. He needed it for his children. He told me that about a week after giving this to Janda Waqf Jadid, he received a letter from HMRC. And now normally when people receive letters from HMRC, they would not open the letter because it's asking them for more money. But on this particular occasion, it was a check for about £700-800 that they had overtaxed him. So by the grace of Allah, he had this considerable amount of money back. Now, people could think this is a coincidence. We believe it's the blessing of Allah. But when we are told that Allah gives back sevenfold, he gives back many, many times more. Further to this story, this same Khadim told me that some months later, because his wife was, there was some issues with his wife at work, it turned out that the place where his wife worked compensated his wife £7,000. And off the back of this considerable amount of money, they were able to put it towards a deposit that they were saving, and then they were able to purchase a house. So my reason for sharing this is Allah rewards those people who sacrifice in his cause in many different ways. And so I urge all the viewers here, if you haven't participated in this blessed scheme, please do so, because you have seen who it benefits. If you've given and you're in a position to give more as a financial sacrifice, then you will benefit, as well as the people that it serves benefits as well. So Jazakallah, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I'll now hand back to Mohsin Sahib for if there's any questions.
Jazakumullah, Faheem Sahib, and Jazakumullah, Nayab Sahib. MashaAllah, very, very informative and impressive presentation you gave us today. And honestly, most of the Jamaat member, they know it's the blessing of this scheme, but they don't know deeply, which you have been shared this information with us. Even if I'll talk about myself, I did not know about the role of IEEE before, and the projects who are dealing by the IAE, by the funded of WAQF blessing scheme. And in this stage, I really would like to say that I feel proud myself to become a part of this blessing scheme. And I'm sure the other Jamaat members who never know about this information, they are feeling also proud to become a part of this blessing scheme. And I pray Allah Ta'ala give us more strength to sacrifice ourselves in not in this blessing scheme, but all of the Jamaat blessing schemes as well. Can I request to Nayab Said Saab if he wants to share a few more comments and remarks with us, then we will go toward our question and answer session, please.
Jazakumullah Mohsin Sahib for that. Yeah, absolutely, would love to. I think, mashallah, Faheem Sahib has covered a big chunk of this element. And one of the other aspects is that we normally see the financial aspects or the hard aspects in terms of projects delivered and the aid provided, etc. Some of the softer sides and the spiritual sides you can only experience when you go out on the trip. Like you just shared your emotions with regards to, I'll be honest with you, my first trip out to Tanzania was my first trip for IEEE. And that was country number 54 for me. So fairly well traveled. And I thought, yeah, I've seen the poverty, I've seen the good stuff. This will be a mishmash hybrid. But after spending those 10 days there, it literally turned my entire life on its head. And where even before I'm, heading back to the airport to come back after the first trip, I'm already thinking, A, how can I get out to come out more, to serve more? And B, more importantly, I'm thinking, I now understand the meaning of Waqf Jadid, and it's almost to get to the stage, I don't even want to buy these coffees from a coffee shop and save every possible penny that I can, because I know the impact that this is actually going to create and the blessings that are associated with it. And one final thing is,
the steadfastness in terms of the faith that you see when you're out there. Unlike here in the UK, and I'll be the first to say as a UK born and bred individual, we love to have a moan here, especially here in the UK, about everything. When you go out there and you see these challenges with these people across the entire African continent, and you realize how deeply rooted they are and how blessed we are as individuals because we've got everything compared to them. Yet they all have a smile on their face. They have this element of contentment throughout, irrespective of what life throws at them. They just pick it up and get on with it. And this was only after, in the first country that I went to, I thought, yep, coincidence. Second country, Benin, okay, same thing here again. Third country, Burkina Faso, exactly the same. Then the penny dropped as to why all the Khulafa from Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih Salis Rahimahullah at the advent of his first visits and setting up the Nusrat Jahan scheme, etc. Then Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih Rabi Rahimahullah, his entire time and focus on that nation. And current Hazur Ayatollah bin Nasr al-Aziz, why they have such a love and passion for this entire continent. And through this blessed scheme, you are able to pass on this spiritual benefit. And so when you talk about Hakukul Abad, so Hakukullah, we're serving our Hakukullah and obligations to Allah. Then we try to do our Hakukul Abad. But through this scheme, not only are you serving the first two, but you are actually engendering and enabling those people who were serving to also come back to Huququllah and then do their Huququl Abad as well, which we've seen in practice, in evidence. Jazakumullah for that. I'll hand back to you now, Mohsin Saab.
Jazakallah, Nayab Saab shared a very, impressive stories with us. Huzur Anwar always shared a lot of moral story with us, and always we felt that we have got the taza iman whenever we heard these stories. So yes, that's a true fact and true. By the peoples are getting a lot of worldly benefit as well by this passing scheme. In the early, I have told to the Jamaat members that there is a question and answer session as well, and mashallah, we are start getting a lot of questions. I'm sure the number is front of your screen, but still, anyone want to ask any question, then they can send their question on that given number on your screen. I will request to my guest, can you please answer questions which we have been received from our Jamaat member. So the first question which I received it that someone asked me that in which country Waqf Jadid has most of the difference so far. Faheem Saab or Nayab Saab, if you can just explain that in which country. I know you have told that Waqf Jadid is working on not only the Africa, in other countries as well, but what you think, in which country it make the most difference by the Waqf Jadid?
Before I hand over, so Niyaz Saab can answer this best because of the IEEE association. What I do know, for those members who are viewing and are from Pakistan, who may have been raised there, born there, they're familiar with the geography of Pakistan, and they know that there are some parts, particularly in the Sindh area, which are desert-like. I remember going through the region when I was a lot younger, on the trains, and this was just a small sample. There's no infrastructure in the remote parts. There's no train lines, road lines, or anything. And so through Waqf Jadid and through other schemes of the Jamaat as well, in fact, a number of wells have been set up in that region as well. So much so that all the facilities that have been set up by the Jamaat, and if it's known that these facilities have been set up by the Jamaat, then the non-Ahmadis become extremely jealous, and then they start sabotaging it. They want to discredit the Jamaat and so on. So there are probably many hundreds across India and Pakistan Niab Sahib can mention Africa, but it's something that we just don't highlight because we don't do it to get that recognition. It's really to serve the people who are in desperate need of clean water, something that we take for granted. My children typically would brush their teeth, let the tap run for 5 minutes and not have a care in the world. However, halfway around the world, every drop is precious. So certainly in the Indian subcontinent, there are many hundred wells set up in that region. Niab Sahib can explain more in the African continent.
Certainly, Jazakumullah Faheem Sahib. As Faheem Sahib has mentioned, we don't really go out as a worldly organization to try and win prizes and say we've done X, Y, Z. What I can do is put my hand in my heart and tell you from experience that the ethos with which the whole Jamaat stands for in terms of love for all, hatred for none, it's truly adopted way down the line. I'll give you a prime example. So through the blessed fact that many of our Jamaats across the African continent and different countries have been established for decades, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. As a result, the deep embedded knowledge, on the ground intelligence in terms of knowledge, local know-how, establishing where the need is, who are the most deserving, because we don't look at, caste, color, creed, even with regards to the IEEE projects. Many projects go out to locations and countries, and we're serving predominantly areas which are non-Ahmadis. So these projects aren't just purely limited to just the Ahmadi locations. So the other big benefit through having the established network of Jamaats already in place, a prime example is with your typical NGOs, the large-scale government, non-governmental organizations, such as WaterAid, UNICEF, UNHCR, when they typically go out and they literally go out to do a project because they've been allocated funds and they have to spend it within a certain amount of time. So they just literally throw it. Most of these organizations, the way they're set up in the individual countries, they normally have a skeleton staff with maybe one expat who's heading it all up, a couple of locals to help them administratively. So when they go to scale out their projects, knowing that they've got to spend this money within a finite amount of time, they normally don't go very far outside the outskirts or the periphery of the major cities. And as a result, all the people out in the rural locations, the true people who are deserving and needing, like the photograph I shared with you with regards to the levels of poverty, they get missed out. Through the blessings of Jamaat and the Waqf Jadid, they are able to, the local Jamaats and the local Umrah are able to highlight and identify those areas which are most deserving. And I'll give you an example. So some of the trips that we go out on, you'll travel 2 or 3 hours on the main road, which is like a dirt track compared to Western standards. And then you'll come off the road onto a dirt track, and you will actually travel for 60 or 70 kilometers on a dirt track to get to some of these villages. So this is what I say, when you go to these type of locations, the impact, or as they would say in English, the bang for your buck, through the blessings of Jamaat and everything that the Jamaat does. Allah Ta'ala put so much blessings in it. If we had to do this as a commercial organization, I would not be able to quantify the amount of money that you would have to throw to get even anywhere near the level of work and impact that, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, Allah Ta'ala has enabled us to deliver through IEEE and Waqf Jadid under the direct guidance and supervision of Hazur Anwar Ayyad Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz.
Jazakallah. Nayab Sahib. I'll just repeat number of WhatsApp number which we are receiving question at the moment. It's 07950 519 732. So member can send their question on this WhatsApp number. Probably you can see it on the screen, but if not, then please note it down. The number which we are receiving question at the moment, it's 07950 519 732. I will go back to again Nayab Sahib. I have received a couple of questions which all connected each other. So few people ask that one person does not have any particular skills, and one person he is an engineer, and both peoples are interesting to become the part of these projects and organization. Can you please just explain the process for both if one does not have any skills or particular skills, or one of is a qualified engineer, please?
Absolutely, Jazakumullah. So yeah, historically in the past, it's been a fairly sort of selective organization, because we were trying to deliver as much work as we could, as fast as we could. We were obviously interested in, as an organization, to leverage the skill sets and knowledge of those who have experience or have a certain profession. But as Hazur himself mentioned in our symposium 2 years ago, he said that inshallah this level of work of Hukukul Abad and IAAE's involvement, and at that time, at the same time, to be honest with you, Humanity First at the same time, the work is going to increase. So as part and parcel of this capacity building and scaling, we have been conducting a number of regional courses throughout the last couple of years, both on the solar electric side, on how to rehabilitate a water hand pump, how to design a solar water pump system. And we have started to welcome more and more people, and working with auxiliaries such as Khudam al-Amdiya, working with other auxiliaries like PAMA, Pan-African Ahmadiyya Muslim Association. And we now also welcome people who have basic electrical skills or basic, plumbing skills or building and construction skills. All people are welcome to come and contact us. And then because we've got these individual groups, we can pair them up and not only provide them elements of training, then with the view that ultimately we never send people out on their own. So even when people join, we won't just say, okay, off you go, you're off to Africa on your own. We will always pair them up with a professional engineer or an experienced person who's been on the trips before. And in your one or first or second trips, you will shadow these people. You will have the training, you will shadow these people with the hope, inshallah, over a long period of time. Anybody who's interested, it's a regular question we get asked. Please feel free. I'll share my details with you at the end of this, and you can contact me, and we can certainly try and get a look at that for you, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Nayaab Sahab. There's one more question is from Faheem Sahab. Someone is just asking that, is there any minimum amount of Waqf Jadid? And he said that I'm supposed to donate, or I can donate whatever I want.
Yes, so in fact, they've answered it themselves. Hazrat Khalifah Rabi mentioned this as well when he expanded the scheme for the whole world, and he allowed and enabled all the people in the other countries in North America, Europe, other parts of East Asia to participate in Waqf Jadid. Huzur mentioned that there's no rate for this scheme, which means, and these are Huzur's words, you can pay as much as you want. And if you think about this, if there was a rate attached to it, and we never know if it changes in the future, but if there was a rate, and you know that now even, in fact, the kind of people it helps and the type of and the regions that this scheme is serving in, your heart tells you to give as much as you can, because you know your own humanity will tell you that I need to give as much as you can, because these people have nothing compared to what I have. I'm when we look at ourselves, we're very fortunate with all the things around us, but we have now seen that these people have next to nothing, and anything that we can do to support them, to give them a better start in life, is for the best. So this is why there's no rate which allows you to put no limit on your people's donations. So I encourage those members who maybe before were giving 10, 20 or 30 pounds because they were not fully aware of the scope of Waqf Jadid. Hopefully now they can feel that they will actually benefit people they will never ever meet, but regardless, those people who are being served, they will definitely be praying for the people who are helping for them as well.
Jazakallah, Faheem Sahab. Is there one more question that I received, that someone is wondering that is there a scheme of adopting a child or a street available if someone wants to take responsibility of one of things holy?
I know through the current topic, there isn't through Waqf Jadid, no IEEE. However, the Jamaat generally has a scheme where it helps and serves orphans. Whether there's a scheme of for a specific child, like some of these charities have, adopt a child and pay for their upbringing and their education and so on. There is, I'm not fully aware if there is such to that level. I do know that there is one for orphans for sure. And if you go to when you go pay your chanda online, chanda.org.uk, where you can pay Waqf Jadid and all these other chandas as well, there'll be another fund. I believe it's Bilal Fund, if I'm not mistaken, for the orphans as well. So that's one way. It may not fully answer the question if it's specifically to adopt a child, but regardless, it's a tradition of the Jamaat not to put all its eggs in one basket. We are serving these people through the many tehreeks. Nayab Sahib mentioned Nusrat Jahan scheme. There's other schemes as well. Humanity First is another association that is connected with the Jamaat. So through all these avenues, people are definitely being served.
Jazakallah Faheem Saab. One more question which I received, and I think Nayab Saab will be the best person to answer it. Someone is just wondering that how far is the water sources from the peoples, or how long peoples have to walk to get water?
In reality, the World Health Organization quotes a completely different number, but when we go out, there's a couple of things. So, number one, the water sources typically tend to be between anything 3 to about 12 kilometers is a typical range. And literally, the aim is, with guidance from Hazur Anwar Ayatollah bin Nasr al-Aziz, both in terms of the capacity of water that we should be providing. So where the World Health Organization stipulates that you should have at least 20 liters per person per day allowed to, for washing, drinking, cooking, everything. And Hazur, when we discussed it with Hazur said you should double this in terms of your quotation, in terms of your allocations. So when we're doing designs for solar water systems, etc., we do it at an elevated rate. But going back to your thing, yeah, 3 to 15 kilometers is quite common. Hazur himself, when he was in Ghana, so in the village that he used to live, he was fortunate and blessed that he had a pickup truck. So within the back of that, he had a large container which he would go once a week and fill up and bring back for his own personal use. And even that water was not like 100%; it was substandard. So that's the challenge is quite extreme.
And I've received another question that what is the difference between by Humanity First and IEEE, and how do they interlink?
Okay, both organizations are interlinked. Firstly, through our bond as being members of the Jamaat and the same blessed organization and Jamaat. What basically happens, Humanity First is an independent, external-facing charity, primarily has the same goals as we do. What we have is IEEE actually is also the technical implementing partner that works alongside Humanity First in delivering many of its projects, primarily on the water and the solar side. And Faheem Sahib, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, absolutely. And furthermore, Humanity First operates in a number of other places around the world as well, setting up hospitals and so on. It's where IEEE have the benefit of setting up their projects in villages where there are Ahmadis present, so that MTA could be utilized through the solar power. Humanity First operates in other regions where maybe there are not Ahmadis present, but it's there to serve the people because there's a need. And this all comes from the fact that there's so many strings to the bow of the Jamaat. It's like I mentioned before, we do not put all our eggs in one basket and depending on one charity. And this is just the genius of Khilafat and the inspiration of Khilafat that we have spread in terms of humanitarian projects and schemes in so many different ways, to serve as many people as we can, and that's continuously been the aim of the Jamaat.
Jazakallah, Faheem Sahib. Faheem Sahib, someone is asking that, are we helping those communities in the way that they cannot get, they can get on their own feet eventually? And meaning, are we helping them to become self-reliant?
Definitely. I'm Niab Sahib again best placed because there's a college being set up in Burkina Faso as we speak, most likely to go live probably next year, where the local people in West Africa and in that region would be trained so that they can help themselves. So like, as the saying goes, you can give a man some fish and he will be fed for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, then he can be fed for his whole life. And so this is the kind of premise of that college. Niab Sahib, probably you can explain a bit more as well.
Absolutely. So we're opening up this knowledge transfer academy in Burkina Faso with the primary goal and objective of trying to engender relevant skills that are relevant and applicable to the particular country and within which these establishments are going to be set up. And inshallah, we're looking, once we've done the first one, to scale these out of different countries. Sustainability is an absolute key proponent of what we try to engender within our projects. The helping and effectively sort of, through this blessed scheme of Waqf Jadid, etc., helping them to get up off the ground onto the first rung of the ladder. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, this happens. But in order to maintain that and provide some continuity and independence for these nations, this is education. I remember Hazur on one of his visits to Africa when he went, and one of the politicians or leaders asked Hazur, so you come to Africa, what do you bring to Africa? And Hazur replied, education. So education is a key proponent of what we must do as part of our projects in helping people to become self-reliant and independent. And in answer to the question, yes, that is a very, very important part. Likewise, Humanity First, who are a lot more professional than IEEE on the softer sciences, they have established schemes where they've got continuous growth in terms of the schools and classrooms that they equip, the teaching resources that they provide, etc. So on the same note, yes, it's a very important part, and we do look at that as a primary element in all our projects.
Mohsin Sahib, if I may just make a quick correction. I mentioned about the orphan scheme. It's actually called the Yatama Fund. And so the Yatim or Yatama is translated to orphan. So we have this fund already in place in the Jamaat. So this was just in reference to an earlier question about adopting a child.
Jazakallah, Faheem Sahib, for correction. I have the last question. Then, in which country most eye operation have been carried out, and also same about water walls.
One thing I do know, I'm going to refer to Niab Sahib in terms of maybe he can. Eye operations is more kind of Humanity First kind of scope, but I do know this explained to me that because of the poor water in these regions, because they are literally, as you can see from the videos that Niab Sahib has shared, it's you wouldn't drink it. It's full of bacteria, and through this bacteria, through drinking this, they develop certain diseases. Some of these diseases affects the eyes, and over time they would lose their eyesight. And so as a result, we are in the process, you can say that we are trying to prevent this from happening. Certainly in terms of eye operations, where the hospitals have been set up in places like Tatparkar in Sindh in Pakistan. A number of operations have been set up there. Similarly with India. I'm not in a position at the moment because I don't have the facts in terms of the number of operations that we've done. Inshallah, I'll have it for maybe on another occasion. It'll be good to share with you. But certainly, every effort is being made to try to prevent this in the first instance. But and certainly where the hospitals are based and mobile clinics, they are doing these minor operations as well.
Well, with
Jazakallah.
regards to the water side, you have primarily the areas all across Africa, as Faheem Sahib just mentioned, it's not just purely to the availability of water, but the condition of the water that's actually being utilized. As a result, due to the breakdown, I'll give you an example. Tanzania at the moment, over 50% of its 12 or 15,000 hand pumps across the country are broken at any one time. So in terms of the most impact that we've had and the most areas that we've been focusing on is primarily what they call the Sahel region. The Sahel region is basically a strip of desert that runs from the west coast of Africa right the way through to the east. So basically bordering countries like Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Benin, the northern parts of Benin. These elements, we do on average sort of 100, 200 per year within these regions, because this is where the challenge is most acute. I'll give you one primary example. The very first village that we've done is a place called Mehdiabad, which is in Burkina Faso, northern part of Burkina Faso. And the closest the regional Jamaat mosque was in a place called Dori, which is about 30 kilometers away. So we got to this place in order to go and do some water work at this village. And we got to Dori late at night. Amir Sahib goes, I'm going to be sleeping outside. And one of the other guys goes, I'm going to sleep outside too. And I said, no, I'm sleeping in the room. I remember getting up at 3:30 in the morning, raising my arms like that in front of the window, and the gust of hot air that blew in was literally like somebody was standing outside the window with a hairdryer. That's how hot it was. And this was 3:30 in the morning. I looked at my watch and it said 38 degrees. In the morning after the Hajj and the Fajr, Amir Sahib goes, hurry up, we need to go. Got to the village, which was 30 kilometers away. And as you're driving, the road's turning from road to sand. So you're literally entering the desert. So we got to this location, and the room where the battery room was, it was 7:45 in the morning. I still remember this vividly. I walked in there just to have a look in there. And there was literally within the space of under a minute and a half, I could feel that my clothes were like I've just been standing in a shower. That's how hot it got there. And I looked at the temperature and it said 39 degrees. This was 7:45 in the morning. These are villages where sometimes they go without water for 2 to 3 days at a time. So that will give you so in countries such as this, across this entire region, that's where we tend to focus with a lot of our work.
Jazakallah Nayab Sahab. We are going toward the end of our program, and we are not taking any further questions. But before ending this question answer session, I have personally one question. It's a two-part. So one part is for Faheem Sahab and one part for you. It's not my question. For some time, few Jamaat member asked me. They wanted to know that as a part of their promises, if someone has collect money for sadaqah or khairat or zakat, can they use that money, part of their top of their promises, into Waqf Jadid? And second question, second part of the question is that all project which you have been shown or discussed with us in your presentation. So IEEE projects, all projects are purely rely on Waqf Jadid funding, their maintenance, or you are allowed to get amount from the other schemes as well.
So on the IEEE side, a lot of our projects, let's just put it this way, the majority of our funds to date have come from the blessings of the Waqf Jadid scheme. And it's what's really truly enabled us to build this foundation and start to scale it up in terms of the level of work that we do. But at the same time, yes, we are we've recently just acquired status of a charity, etc. And people do occasionally fund into things, both people and corporations. You know, businesses have funded certain projects in the past. But the best route, as I said, you have this wonderful, beautiful scheme of Waqf Jadid, because if you put it through that, you're basically getting the icing on the cake as well, pardon the pun. But you're getting the blessings of being associated with the scheme. And effectively all the money that we get that comes via the Jamaat is guided by Hazur directly himself. So even with all projects, etc., we put, even when we get projects initiated from Umrah, we request them to, we forward those projects to Hazur for his approval. So everything that we do is done directly under the supervision and guidance. So as I said, where you've got the ability to actually wrap everything up into Waqf Jadid, what more could you want? Because you're getting the blessings from all around.
In regards to sadaqah, that is also a common question that comes in. It should be understood that sadaqah is meant specifically for the poor. And it's mentioned a few times in the Quran as well. When people ask the question, because when they find out about who Waqf Jadid helps, they will, the next sometimes obvious question is, well, can I give my sadaqah to these people as well? I think people should understand that sadaqah, and whether you're giving to Waqf Jadid, you're not doing it for the sake of the sadr or the emir or anything. You're doing it to win Allah's pleasure, and it's your intention and niyat as to who you're giving it towards. And it's solely for that purpose. This is why you give sadaqah. You give sadaqah to win Allah's pleasure. If your intention is that you want to help and benefit these people, and you feel personally, if you feel that it's best served if you give through Waqf Jadid, then do so. No issues with that. Or if you feel it can be best suited through another charity, even, you can give your sadaqah to any charity because it's there to help charities that serve these poor people. You can give it to them. So I would suggest not to confine yourself with the labeling as to whether my sadaqah goes to Waqf Jadid, will it still be cancelled? Sadaqah is sadaqah, and it's your niyat, it's your intention that Allah looks at. If your heart tells you that you want to benefit these people, and if you want to win Allah's love, like as I've just mentioned, then that's the main thing that counts. It's not the amount is the main thing that counts, it's the intention.
Certainly, Faheem Sahib. Jazakallah for giving this explanation. And the program is is on the last stage. So I'm really say Jazakallah for your giving, for your time you give it to us. I know you both are very busy persons, but we all have got a very brief and information which we don't have before, and now we have a better understanding about this blessing scheme. But if still someone is want to ask any question or want to contact, so I'm sure Nayab Sahib and Faheem Sahib is always available to clarify or give the further information if anyone try to contact to them. So in the program, the last, can I request to Faheem Sahib, can you please lead us in a silent prayer?
Jazakallah, I just want to take this opportunity on behalf of Nayab Sahib as well for thanking you immensely to Manchester South Jamaat, to Sir Sahib Nadeem Sahib for helping facilitate this as well, and all the people behind the scenes, Najaf Sahib as well, and yourself, Mohsin Sahib. Thank you so much for enabling us to showcase this to the viewers. Thank you so much to the viewers for their time in listening to this as well. I request all of you to, during these difficult times while the pandemic in the UK is still not under control, please pray for each other as well, that we're able to remain well and safe. And with that, I'll ask you to please join me in silent prayer. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ameen.
Ameen.
Jazakallah Rahim Saab, Nayab Saab, and
Jazakumullah
all the
khair,
Waqf.
بہار آئی ہے دل وقفے یار کر دیکھو خرد کو نظر جنون بہار کر دیکھو بہار آئی ہے دل وقفے یار کر دیکھو خرد کو نظر جنون بہار کر دیکھو غضب کیا ہے جو کانٹوں سے پیار کر دیکھا غضب کیا ہے جو کانٹوں سے پیار کر دیکھا اب آؤ پھولوں کو بھی ہم کنار کر دیکھو اب آؤ پھولوں کو بھی ہم کنار کر دیکھو بہار آئی ہے